Hi student, I am Toton Ghosh from BARDHAMAN district. It is in West Bengal. If you want to learn from me by offline, so you can contact me through my email ID, which has been provided in my description. So today I am going to discuss a poem, Dear March, written by Emily Dickinson. At first, I will tell you the summary, the background of the poem, so that you can understand it in a better way. Now, let's begin. Emily Dickinson was born into a prominent family in Amherst, Massachusetts, known most of her life for being shy, socially awkward. Emily slowly started secluding from society. She moved to a private home away from society. Dickinson lived on her own terms. She created her own world and only allowed certain people in. Emily's dark outlook on life could in part have to do with her brother's affairs. Emily was often put in the middle because she was very close to her brother's wife, Susan Gilbert, Susan, Susan Gilbert, 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 whom she sent most of her poems to her to read. New theories suggest that Emily Dickinson moved away from society because she had epilepsy. Epilepsy. Medical prescription records show that she was prescribed medicine that would treat that illness. Certain poems talk about it and how she had something to tell, and in some of her poems she speaks about sickness. Some of her poems are about convulsions, convulsions, convulsions in her brain, also a sign of epilepsy. Living in a time when this illness was not very accepted, it makes sense that she would seclude herself away from the judging eyes of society. Dear March, Come In, a poem by Emily Dickinson, is about Emily's love for the season of March and the joy it brought to her. She personifies March as if he were a friend of the poet. March is most likely Reverend Charles Wordsworth. March is identified as Reverend Charles Wordsworth. Remember the spelling Reverend, Reverend, Charles, Charles Wordsworth, WadSworth, spelling WAD, not WOD, WADSWORTH, Wordsworth. By personifying the month of March, Dickinson is able to hide her relationship. She knows that it is wrong, but she is able to relate her love to March to Wordsworth, who is known to be the great love of Emily Dickinson's life. He was married in March of 1855. He called on Dickinson and she spent 3 weeks visiting with him in Washington. It is thought that he inspired many of her poems about love. Dear March, Come In. She could be interpreted as the love story between Emily Dickinson and Charles Wordsworth. It describes the beginning, middle, and end of their relationship. The first stanza is about how happy Emily is when she is finally united with March. March is out of breath from being away for a year. In this first stanza, Dickinson is extremely excited and happy to be with her love, March. In the second stanza, Emily is telling March about what happened while he was away. This stanza really shows the emotion that Emily feels about March. In the poem, "the" is used to show that Emily was so overcome with emotion that she was barely able to speak. She describes the red faces of maple trees. This image could be the changing of the seasons, or it could be the red anger in the judging faces of society that would look at their affair in a bad way. The third stanza shows the end of the relationship between Emily and March. When April comes, March must leave. Emily's mood changes from being overcome with joy. She becomes extremely angry when the time comes for him to leave. She chooses to blame April for March having to leave because it is easier for her to blame something that she does not love than the one that she does love. April coming is most likely related to when Charles Wordsworth abruptly left Dickinson and took a job at a church in San Francisco, California. Then she comes to the realization that the small things that March gave her seem even smaller now that he has gone. The last two lines of the poem, which are similar in a lot of her poetry, tie together the theme of the poem. They are written that blame is just as dear as praise, and praise as near as blame. What Dickinson is trying to convey is that she has come to the realization that as much as she loves the good things that March brings to her life, she also hates him for taking away. There is a saying that March comes in like a lion, but lives like a lamb. The season of March comes in strong with heavy winds and cold weather, but it loves with calmness. That is true in the relationship between Emily Dickinson and Charles Wordsworth. Their love started great, but then Wordsworth left her without much to remember. After Charles Wordsworth left for California, Dickinson became very ill. A doctor reported that some kind of shock affected her nervous system and her eyesight. Epilepsy sometimes causes one's eyesight to falter. She would not tell anyone what happened to her, most likely because it would bring shame to her family. The idea of a woman having an affair with a married reverend was not welcomed during Emily Dickinson's time, nor was having an illness such as epilepsy. Now I will discuss each and every line and the words of the poem. An analysis of the poem. If you want to read from me by offline, so you can contact me through my email ID, which has been provided in my description. I usually teach students from Icse, Cbse and WBBSE students. I stay in Bardhaman. Now, the first stanza of the poem. Dear March, come in, how glad I am. Means here the poet invokes the March. Remember, who is March? March has been personified here. March means the poet's lover. Dear March, come in. How glad I am. I hoped for you before. I expected you before because you have not been here for a long time. Put down your hat. Means put up your hat. You must have walked. How out of breath you are. Means as you have walked for a long time to arrive to me. That's why you are very tired. You are out of breath. Means you are very tired. You are panting. Dear March, come right up the upstairs with me. I have so much to tell. Directly, the poet invokes Dear March to come to the upstairs because she has much to tell. To tell her beloved, to tell her lover. In the first stanza, means in the first line, the speaker greets March as an old friend whom she has not seen in a long while. She personifies the month to be able to have a conversation with him, saying that she has been waiting for him. Dear March, come in. How glad I am. I looked for you before. Dickinson is clearly eager to spend as much time with March as possible, glad to leave winter behind. Oh, March, come right upstairs with me. I have so much to tell. In the second stanza, I got your letter and the birds. The maples never knew that you were coming. Means already the poet got his letter. And the birds and the maples means a kind of tree, never knew that you were coming. Till I called, I declare how red their faces grew. But March, forgive me. Forgive means pardon me. And all those hills you left for me to hew. There was no purple suitable. You took it all with you. In the second stanza, Dickinson tells of what has happened while March has been away. The maples never knew how red their faces grew. Dickinson writes this way as a clever double meaning. As winter closes and March approaches, the trees begin to grow black in color in preparation for bloom. However, as trees are personified in this poem as well, their growing redder is simply blushing. And all those hills, you took it all with you. In these lines, Dickinson states that March brings and takes the beautiful purple hues with it, and she could do nothing with the lack of purple. In the last stanza, who knocks that April? Because after March, who will come? April will come. Lock the door. I will not be pursued. He stayed away a year to call. When I am occupied, but trifles look so trivial. Trifles mean unimportant things. Look so trivial. They are looking trivial. Means insignificant, unimportant things. As soon as you have come, that blame is just as dear as praise, and praise as mere as blame. In the third stanza, Dickinson shouts out April and continues talking to March. Who knocks that April when I am occupied? In the first half of the last stanza, Dickinson states how rude April is, and even asks March to lock the door. She waited a year for April, who calls only when she is enjoying the company of March. But trifles look so trivial as soon as you have come. Dickinson explains to March with a hint of alteration or alliteration that all her troubles seem to melt away at his arrival. Winter has gone. Now March is there to enjoy. Fleetingly, as April is knocking at the door, the blame is just as dear as praise, and praise as mere as blame. Means the last two are perhaps the most interesting lines in the poem. Dickinson earlier blames March for taking the purple hues, then praises him for bringing them back. To the speaker in these cases, the two are one in the same. Now I will analyze the poem. One would quickly notice the poem is freely structured, which means there are no certain number of lines presented in each stanza of the poem, and the fact that sentences may not rhyme with each other. This poem consists the main idea of transcendentalism, spelling transcendentalism. The main theme in the poem is March, which is beginning month of spring. Yet it also means the blossom of life. Dickinson describes the core living materials of spring, including birds, despite the fact that she is a recluse and has been withdrawn from the society for a long time. Yet just like that, Emerson and other transcendentalists believe in, one does not need to leave their current location to understand the meaning and the elements of life. The only thing they need to do is to stay in contact with nature, which Dickinson did in her garden. The poem also discussed her feeling of welcoming nature in her front doors. However, just like life could arrive without any signs or warnings. In this next paragraph, Dickinson describes how she does not want the arrival of April, although she never gives the reason of having such feelings. However, one could suppose that she does not want to lose the contact between herself and the beginning of life. Sooner or later, May is going to arrive, and after a few months, winter would come and kills every living material. In reality, no matter so powerful nature could be, it still within samsara. Thank you to all of my dear students for watching my video till the end. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel.